Hi everyone, and welcome to my first unboxing and setup video. I've had the Xperia one for a few days now, and I made this video to address some of the usage concerns / complaints people are reporting with this phone, specifically with side sense, battery life, and the fingerprint sensor. But before I get into that, let's show you what's inside the box. Now the box itself is pretty standard Sony fare, very minimalistic and unassuming. It's pretty sturdy. It's made out of like a hard cardboard. It's pretty nice. Classic Sony minimalist design. And let's open her up. Now, while I open this, be aware that I am filming this on a Galaxy S9, so I'm sure the colors that are being recorded are not accurate. Looks pretty saturated, at least here on the viewfinder. Stuff. So, whoop. There we are. This aside. And the phone itself. It's obviously the white model. Get the zoom this down. Now, for the sake of time, I've actually already set up my phone and loaded the apps that I use. The model number that I purchased is J9110. It's which is the dual SIM variant that was released for Asian markets. I'm from the United States, but I didn't have the patience to wait until the American release. Plus, I really wanted the white version. Also, I'm using this phone in Mexico, and for those of you who are wondering, I've had no issues with speed or connectivity while using the Asian variant in the United States and in Mexico. So far, so good. No complaints on that front. Putting this aside. Let me open this up. And normally this is the box that has the documentation. We'll set this aside for now as well. And inside the box, we have the power brick. This is actually a special kind of power brick. It's actually a fast charger using the PD power delivery standard. Since this is the Asian market, obviously it's not the standard prongs used for 120 volt 60 hertz system here in the United States or certain parts of Latin America. The one thing to note about this is that, I don't know if you can see in the video, that the connection for the brick uses a USB Type-C connection, which means that the cable provided to connect this to your phone is a USB-C to USB-C connection. So, I don't know about you guys, but I definitely don't have a bunch of these type of cables lying around, so you definitely don't want to lose this. Put this to the side. In addition, you get a 3.5mm to USB-C dongle. Since the phone doesn't come with a headphone jack, Sony was kind enough to provide the dongle and also provide a set of 3.5mm headphones. I've actually tried these headphones because I have my set of wireless headphones, so I have no need for this, but I'm sure when the time comes it'll come in handy. Finally, let's look at what's inside this box. Let's see, and as suspected, it's the startup guide. No one really reads this. I don't read it. Let's check that. And here comes the phone actually came with the case, surprisingly enough, which is kind of nice of Sony. It's a clear case, and I kind of wish I knew about this in advance because in anticipation of receiving the phone, I purchased my own case. Let's see how this works. Let's slide this in. And it's like a gel case. It's pretty soft to the inside, grippy. Actually, the inside is kind of like a matte finish, which is nice because that means that the back of the glass won't get dirty or filled with the air bubbles. Slide this in. Here it is. It's pretty nice. Feels good in the hand. It's like a gel material. Provides protection along the entire edge of the phone. If you can see that well. And the buttons themselves are also covered. Turn this off. Now the actual case that I bought, as an aside, is from this company called Arcor, and I'm not getting paid for them to mention this, but I just wanted to talk about them because I actually really like their case. Put this down. It's actually a black case in a matte finish. I'm just pulling it out right now. Here we are. I don't know if you can see, but there's like a grain on top of the inside and the outside of the case, which makes it really grippy. And actually, it's much grippier than the case I was provided by Sony, to be honest. I kind of prefer this case more, the Arcor case, because it's a slimmer profile than the provided case that came with the phone. And considering this phone is long enough as it is, I really don't want to add any more grip to it. Thankfully, the phone itself is pretty slim, at least compared to other phones of this display size. But this black case doesn't add much in terms of width, whereas you actually feel a difference using the plastic provided case. Plus, I just personally like the look of the black on white better, but it does have less protection in the gel case, because as you can see, the bottom of the phone is not protected. Where even though you have some clearance here, so if I can show this, you have some clearance on the bottom where hopefully if you have a really flat surface and the phone falls, it'll just be the corner bumpers that'll protect the phone. But I would feel more confident with this plastic one. But as I said, plastic gel case is more slippery than this black hard case. Alright, let's talk specifics. Battery life. Considering that Xperia 1 comes with a small battery by Android flagship standards, you're going to want to use dark mode wherever you can on this phone. Within the system settings, you can actually change the theme to use dark mode where applicable under the display settings. Android Pie does come with a system theming section for the display. If you go to display settings, advanced, all the way to the bottom, you can see device theme. Try to get that in. There you go. In focus, dark, device theme is dark, and you can actually set it based on the wallpaper. I always leave it on dark. Unfortunately, this dark theme doesn't actually apply to every part of the UI. In essence, it just changes the app drawer to a dark theme versus a standard, which is white, as this phone is based off the very close to stock Android. Typically in a stock Android, the app drawer is white, but setting it to the system theme to dark changes it to black, which is kind of nice. Considering this is an OLED screen, that should help somewhat with the battery life. Anytime you can get darker colors on the display, it'll definitely help. In addition, you can actually go into developer settings to activate a somewhat of an unknown feature, where there's also another type of dark theme. So if you go to the system and about phone, developer settings, where are you, developer settings? Can't find it. Let me just search for it. Developer options. There is a night mode on. A night mode, you can actually toggle it on or off. I always keep it on. Again, doesn't really seem to do much other than, in this case, just change the notification state to a darker color. Before, this used to be white. After turning it on during the developer settings, the dark mode changes to a darker color. Now, the one other thing I want to mention with regards to night mode is that you're going to want to use apps that have a dark mode built in. Google has been pretty good about updating some of the more popular apps, such as Google Calendar, Google Keep, to include a dark mode. Unfortunately, they still haven't gotten to Google Chrome yet, but there is a way to change the flags within Chrome to get some UI elements to be displayed in dark colors. So I could show you that in Chrome. Let me get this to focus. If you notice, my home page is using a dark theme. I'm trying to get this to focus. And this can be changed via the flag setting in Chrome. So if you type Chrome, and navigate to flags, you can actually search for a dark theme. I can just get this to focus. There we go. Type in dark mode, it'll search for it, and you'll be presented with two options. The first one is Android web contents dark mode. Basically, this will try to render any web pages in a dark theme, but be careful with this because depending on the website, it may not fully work. Sometimes you'll have the colors inverted, which will really mess up the display or the rendering of an image or a video. So just be careful with that. And you also have this other one, the Android Chrome UI dark mode. This basically changes just the UI of Chrome so that when you open up Chrome, you'll see the navigation bar will be in black instead of white. Considering that this phone has a long display, it's worth getting to know the various shortcuts provided in order to access various UI elements of the system. For some reason, I've seen a bunch of reviews of this phone discuss how difficult it is to reach the top of the screen with one hand to slide the notification shade, which, to be honest, I don't understand because when you're on the home screen, you can actually swipe down from the center of the screen in order to bring down your notification shade. Another swipe down will allow me to reach the settings and also access regular system settings. So again, you can swipe down from the middle of the screen to bring down your notification shade. You don't have to reach up all the way to the top because admittedly that would be difficult if you didn't have this option, but thankfully it's there for you to use when necessary. The other thing about this phone is that it comes with side sense, and admittedly it's kind of hit or miss, at least in the beginning. Once you actually get the hang of it, it's very useful. So typically you're supposed to double tap on the side of the screen. It does come on. It is set to on by default. The issue is that when you're trying to use side sense, it's very hard to figure out where exactly is the sweet spot for the activation of side sense. Now there is a tutorial here. Let me see if I can get to the tutorial. Display, interaction, side sense. Tutorial here. And it walks you through what you need to do in order to get started with side sense. So basically, in order to bring up side sense, you're supposed to double tap the screen on the edge of the screen on either side of the display. Now, it's very sensitive when you hit it in the right spot, but unfortunately, just tapping here where you would expect the edge to be doesn't register, right? So you kind of have to find the sweet spot. And for me, with this case on, I've noticed that that black line along the edge of the display where the display meets the aluminum frame, that's kind of where you want to hit it. And once you kind of figure that out, you see I'm not even doing this right now, it'll work. But it's very, very specific, and which is good and bad because if you don't get the hang of it, you'll obviously be frustrated with its use, but it also makes sure that you don't accidentally activate side sense all the time. Same thing with a slide up, slide down. As long as you know exactly where the sweet spot is, it will work, and it works pretty well when you get it working, when you figure out the location. Slide down, and then the lesson. The cool thing about this is that you can actually change the location of the side sense where it activates. So for example, you can actually change not only the speed, have it set to a slow double tap to activate side sense. You can also change the length of the slide you have to perform in order to use the gestures. I have mine set to short so that I don't have to do a full long swipe motion either up or down, and it makes it a lot easier to use. So, and finally, you can configure the touch position so that you can set it to however you want. You can actually show where the input should reside, right? So if you have the transparency set to high, it's completely invisible. But if you bring it down, you can see it kind of. I don't know if you can see this. There's like a blue line here, and on the other side of the screen as well, where SideSense expects some sort of gesture or double tap. Now I pretty much set it more or less where my thumb naturally rests. This helps so that you don't have so that just holding the phone naturally, you don't activate SideSense inadvertently. So this is very useful to have, and you can also change the length of this depending on how big or small your thumb is. So this is set for me, and once you're actually in, actually let me go back because I don't want my sensors, I don't want the indicators to show. When you actually are in some web page or some app, you can use the swipe down gestures to go back, which is very helpful because you don't, for me at least, it's very uncomfortable to try to reach down to the back button while holding the phone without having to actually, rearrange my holding position, which might lead me to drop the phone. So once you're in a comfortable grip, you just want to slide down. Notice it goes back to the previous page. If I can just get this correctly. See again, try it again. Now it's not working. But yeah, you get the idea. Just got this phone. It's takes practice getting used to SideSense, but once you figure it out, actually in this case it's trying to go back, but there's not really much to go back to. You can actually, for example, if I go to, let's try one more time in Google Maps. If I pick a place, I should be able to do gestures. If I go up, it brings up the multi-window application where I can run two apps at once. So I'll do that, and let's say Chrome. Then when I go back, well, can't go back there, but let's see. Notice how you see that little marker on the side of what's being activated. So it does work pretty well once you learn where the position is. I recommend using it. It takes some time to get used to, but once you get it, it's much easier than having to reach down to the bottom of the screen when you're already in a comfortable grip. One more thing I wanted to mention was, I don't know if you guys noticed, my Google Chrome, the address bar is actually in the bottom of the screen, these shortcuts. So instead of me having to reach all the way to the top in order to input a web address, I can actually just access it from the bottom of the screen, which makes it, again, much easier for one-handed use. I can just press that search icon to bring it up and type whatever it is I want to type, and so on and so forth. Settings. All right, so the last thing I wanted to discuss was the fingerprint sensor. The fingerprint sensors are the side-mounted variety, which Sony first introduced way back in the Z5 line. The difference here is that the power button is separate from the sensor itself. which is a departure from previous Xperia models that had integrated fingerprint sensor and power buttons. Personally, I think Sony did this to avoid the sucky situations of Xperia's past, where the American market had to have their integrated fingerprint sensor disabled. In order to use the fingerprint sensor of older Xperias, you had to physically press the button in order to activate it. In the Xperia 1, the sensor is always on. That means that even just grazing the phone, with any part of the skin would register as, so let's lock this. We'll try to have the sensor read whatever is touching it. After a while, you'll error out, and then you have to enter a PIN code in order to access the phone. You're probably going to run into this situation more likely when you're taking the phone out of your pocket or out of the bag. So just be mindful of where your skin is making contact with the sensor when retrieving the phone. It's kind of annoying in the beginning, but it becomes habit in a short while. Again, the sensor itself is reasonably fast. You can actually double tap to wake. You don't always have to press the power button, and then just place your finger, and there it is. Now you don't have to, I've noticed that you don't have to wake up the phone. I've seen people say that you have to wake up the phone first, either by pressing the power button or by double tapping the screen. You see the fingerprint icon. But I've been able to just hold down the sensor, and there it is. So you can turn on the access the phone without having to press the power button first. Here goes again. It takes like a second, but it's there, and not a big deal to wait that second, in my opinion. So that's it for this video. I'll be testing the camera over the weekend, taking day and nighttime shots, and I'll also be testing the Cinema Pro app. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them. Thanks for watching. Take care.